All right, we'll call the Lakeshore Hospital Authority Board of Trustees meeting to order. Is there any staff or trustee additions or deletions to the agenda or consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, staff would like to request two additions. One is we have a renewal of our annual elevator inspection, which was received after publication of the agenda. The second is staff is going to request that you call a workshop or special meeting. There's two purposes for that. One is, I think as you go through your agenda tonight, you're going to see that there is still missing information that will not allow you to make some final decisions. We can address it at that special meeting. But also secondly, I would like to bring in those people that have been discussing the need for space for medical purposes. You've met one of those. I'd like to bring the other in too. Plus, we have an item on tonight's agenda which is impacted by your decision on that. But I see no reason at this point that we can't go ahead and start finalizing those arrangements. If that's okay with trustees.
Well, that is to the end of new business.
Yes.
Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move, Mr. Chair, to adopt the agenda with the additions requested by staff.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that motion carries. Public comments, Ms. Lindley.
I'd like to do mine after I hear the items,
Okay.
please.
Mr. Warren.
Likewise.
I have a comment. How do you do this?
I can hear you, Mr. Looker.
Thank you very much. I think we've got this figured out. I can't see how one raises their hand. I just have one question. I'll make my comments when I understand after you make the motion for discussion on the action items, because I'm not clear on some of them. But I do have a question. When I turned on the screen for the first time I ever saw this at the hospital authority or anywhere on Zoom, it says this meeting is being sent to a third party, and I have to agree to that. Do you know anything about that before we get involved with this?
Do you know if that's the YouTube?
I'm cranking this volume right now.
It said something about it's being shared to a third party. Is that because
Oh, that's
being,
YouTube, yes.
because it's being streamed on YouTube, Mr. Looker?
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. As far as the other stuff goes, I'll request permission to speak when those items come up. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Unfinished business, discussion and action, a request from the Third Judicial Circuit requesting the use of the Women's Center. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is a continuation from your special meeting, the end of January. You directed that I meet with the appropriate personnel from the county and the Third Circuit Court Administrator's Office to sort of obtain what they believe would be the overall concept and the overall format of an agreement to utilize space currently known as the Women's Center. That was done. The discussion was pretty much summarized in a letter from Mr. Foreman, which is part of your agenda packet. You do have representatives here from the Third Circuit Court Administrator's Office, as well as Judge Olin, the Chief County Judge. I think the concept would be is they're more than willing to pay rent. They would like to perform the necessary repairs and maintenance that we were going to perform ourselves, simply because they have a staff. They can do some of that in kind. They already have contracts in place, which means they could do a lot of it more expeditiously than we could. There are some things that need to be finalized, such as They're going to have to look at the availability of fiber for what they do, security and et cetera, because they're completely separate from what we do. But I saw nothing, or I heard nothing in the conversation that I had that I think should be considered an area of issue. This simply boils down to whether you have a desire under those terms and conditions to lease that building or not. And having said that, I'll defer to you and to someone from court administration.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Do you anticipate leasing this forever?
As far as I'm concerned, I would love to have it forever, yes. Are you considering leasing it forever?
No, I'm just asking.
Yes, we've been back over there again, Ms. Chauncey, and we have had an opportunity to walk through the building yet again, and even go so far as to receive a copy of the layout. And it definitely would serve our purposes and lend really a good. So we could call that home for quite some time, if you will allow it.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir, Mr. Kennedy.
I'm not an attorney, so please excuse me, but in reading the lease agreement, the proposed lease agreement that court administration is looking at beginning July 1, 2024, with the current landlord that they currently have. I didn't read anything in here, but correct me if I'm wrong, because you are a government entity, state agency. Should there not be something in this proposed lease that First Federal has with you that if, and I'm sure that Mr. Williams can probably answer this, that if the counties within the Third Circuit are able to provide the courts with other office space, then the lease can be terminated within 60 days, 90 days notice?
I'm not aware of that provision. I'm aware that we are due to start our new lease on July 1.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure, Mr. Williams, I don't know if you've looked at that.
You know what I'm talking about there, Dale? I know when
I do.
I've seen those
Of
before.
course, this goes back to my county manager days.
Yes, sir.
Back then, there was provisions because various counties would offer space
Yes, sir.
and they wanted to have a rate adjustment as it related. What happened, Don, is that all those decisions have to be approved by the chief circuit judge. So if they do not believe that the offer of space in any way benefits the effectiveness of that particular office, they have the right of refusal. And so the answer is yes, with approval. But just because a county offers space does not mean that they're obligated to take that space and give that credit.
But it would all, but they can break the lease if they would. I guess my point being, let's just assume that because they're staring down the barrel of a July 1
Oh, I
date.
see. Well,
We don't know if we can be there by July 1 because of the other possible medical facilities that we're vetting. I was just wondering if the courts entered into this lease, let's say by January 1, that we're able to accommodate them in a facility, would they be able to break this lease?
that private lease, I don't know. the
And I
answer
guess
to
maybe
that.
that's a Mr. Kennan question.
Yeah, I have not studied the First
Yeah.
Federal lease.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember years ago that provision was possible, that it could happen, it could occur. If the counties were able to provide a lease, I know we had that in a lease over in Live Oak with the facility that we were in at one time years ago.
And Mr. Kennedy, I cannot answer that question, and I too have not
Okay.
studied the first federal
Gotcha.
lease.
Okay,
That being said, I don't know that it's a typical lease. It's the first lease I've ever seen on a commercial level that did not provide for square footage in the lease. So, but I have not studied that one
Oh.
either. I was not involved in signing that
okay,
and implementing that move.
okay. Thank you. And then, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Did we ever get square footage so we could kind of compare what,
We did. I think actual usable square footage ended up being 8,000 something square feet. The remainder of what's in that building is basically equipment rooms, you know, things of that nature. I think the total building's a little over 10, the actual usable's a little over 8.
and then were you all able to find out what the square footage was that you're currently leasing?
I think what Mr. Kraus figured out by dealing with the property appraiser's office, since it's not in our lease, the square footage isn't, that it was about 5,000.
I think I was told 5,600. Yeah.
Any other questions? Judge Owen? Ready for some public comments, or is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to listen to public comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Ms. Lemon.
Recognize Stu, for making having some difficulties. He has-
I'm gonna go in order of how I got it, so I was gonna see if you had any for this.
I'd like to, but I'd like to speak after Stu.
Mr. Warren, do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I can go anytime. I mean, I ain't got no problem with quarterbacking. Justin. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Trustees, Sylvester Moon for the record, 930 on the show, Coney, I think it's the paperwork that I filled out. My purpose, in responding to, unfinished business, which would be, I guess, item 1 right here, is that I wanted, I guess, communicate a level of respect that I have for a few people, but I want to also express my dismay and frustration with this board and the chair. One, I don't like people to play with my intelligence nor my reputation, Mr. Williams, and board. One, you don't tell the community that you all are going to take the Lakeshore Authority property and use it for medical purposes and get people hopes all up in the community, especially the predominant Black community, which is property adjacent to, which is a part of the underserved part of it. The whole reason that this board exists and the people y'all supposed to be serving. And then all of a sudden, the courthouse people make it on the agenda, and the people who was actually proposing to do medical things never makes it on the agenda. How does that happen then? How does that happen? I want to know, how does that happen? Why are we entertaining the courthouse and these facilities are supposed to be medical facilities? That's what the community want to know, and that's what I want to know, and how they skipped the line. How they jumped the line? And were you talking to, or whether or not you were being honest and straightforward when you were talking to the medical people about going in that building? And were you talking to the courthouse at the same time and not telling the people who you were talking to about the medical building? I don't do backroom deals. Either the government is gonna be transparent, and we ain't gonna play like we played in the old days. That was then, and people benefit, and that's fine. I have no problem with the old days. We're living in 2024, and we expect for government to be transparent. And if we ain't gonna be transparent, then we need to get rid of this government or get rid of this body and do it the right way and get somebody up here that's willing to. And I'm just dead serious there. That looking and saying at me like I'm not on that. I'm talking about being truthful and laying it out and playing like we say we're gonna play it. If we're saying we're playing 4 hard downs, we're playing 4 hard downs. We're not playing 1st and 10. And that's where I'm old school. That's where I come from. Don't tell me something and then move the goalposts on me. Don't move the goalposts on my community. Don't have me to go and communicate something to people that I know in the community that I live, born, and raised in, and then you come up here and do something different. I don't play those games. Now, maybe those guys from the old school that look like me, they shuffled and juggled around and they play those games. I don't play them games. I come straight forward and I expect for y'all to come straight forward, and that's where we meet in the middle. But I don't play them games, period. And so we need to check that as a board.
Warren. Mr. Looker.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We're both, me and Carl are doing the mutes and unmutes. Sorry about that. I believe this part of the discussion at the meeting is to discuss the item on the agenda, not football or other things. The statute, the controlling statute that controls the authority, 2005-315, is clear. The hospital authority was set up, and I would suggest you look at section 7, and that's for Her Honor and the people in court administration and the county. It says the purpose of the hospital is for health care. Unless court administration is going to be doing blood tests and other things, that's not really health care. So that doesn't meet the requirements of the statute. I respectfully point that out to the court. The other thing it is, I would remind you, years ago, when Marlon Fiegel was the attorney for the authority, the Lifestyle Enrichment Center, or whatever they call that down on Bayer, they came to the authority and they asked for money from the authority. It was for a public purpose so that people could get through the doors. And Marlon Fiegel said that even though it was for a public purpose, and I would suggest you look at Mr. Foreman's letter, who said public purpose, you know, in my words, almost every line, the public purpose is not the issue here. Everybody understands that the courts are for a public purpose. The point is, the courts are not for a medical purpose. And Mr. Fiegel advised the board at that time that they could not give the money to the Lifestyle Enrichment Center because it was not for a medical public purpose. Florida statutes enable you to give that building to the county, just like they did the Record Center, not to lease it for stuff that's not medical. So what I would suggest you do, the board, and I'm done, is decide what you want to use the hospital authority for, because you're not basically supplying any medical services now. The board is not legally constituted, and I request Her Honor look at the enabling legislation, which says a member of the board has to be a member of practicing at the Lakeshore Hospital. There is no Lakeshore Hospital anymore. And give the hospital. Florida statutes enable you to give the hospital to another government agency, and give that building that they need if you want to get out of the healthcare business, which you're not in, and just give it to them. But the law does not allow you to lease that building to them. And I suggest everybody look at that statute. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Lindley.
My comments are pretty much the same as Stu's. Is you gotta follow the legislation. And just like with the building gave to the county for the courts, lease it, why don't we just give them the building to the county? And then if they wanna lease it out to the judicial administration, then it can go through that and we can be out of it totally. Because we've done so many things that are against the enabling legislation. And it was several years ago, I pointed out, Stu, when Dr. Khan left and the other guy came in, then he left. We were an illegally constituted board because we don't follow the enabling legislation, but nobody in Tallahassee seems to care, even the appointments office. You know, they just blew me off a couple of years ago. And so we need to get on track and follow the enabling legislation. Thank you.
The wishes of the board.
Mr. Chairman. I think that you could tell from the questions that I asked that, and from the last meeting that we had back in January, I don't know, whatever day it was, the 30th, I guess, that I had suggested to the board that we look at putting it on the agenda to declare that building surplus property and look at giving it to the county. It was not met at that time with acceptance that evening, and I don't think we are there right now. I'm not there right yet, Mr. Chairman, to make that motion. That's why I asked the questions to court administration and regarding their lease, whether they could get out of it, because I do want to vet whatever medical provider that we can put on this campus here. That's the reason why I got on this board 25 months, 26 months ago. And, but we have been doing that the 26 months that I've been here, and we have yet to find a vendor that wants to lease to us. I know we had Mr. Kennan in long negotiations with a possible one, which fell through. We're still looking at the hospital. Maybe the courts can use the 4-story hospital. If that's the case, let's give them the hospital too. But, or excuse me, the county, I should say. But I'm there, but right now I do want to be able to vet whatever medical provider there is available. And I think Mr. Help me pronounce your name again. Heidebitz, Mr. Heidebitz, I would assume also that before a government entity can go in that building, that the elevator, because of ADA requirements, would have to be repaired before you even enter it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so see, we're at that point there, and that's why I'd like for Mr. Heidebitz to go back and get legal advice, which he has plenty access to, on that lease, to see if there's any way that they can go ahead and discuss the lease with their current tenant, a landlord, I'm sorry, and then maybe get out of it. But I do want to, I've talked enough, I'm done, period. You know my feelings. And again, don't let me remind you, we are spending $74,000 a month since I've been on here and have nothing to show for it.
And for the record, I echo your sentiments. I think that it's just not a good time to discuss this. I think we still have to exhaust all our efforts to try to find something medical related. I had mentioned the Dell a couple months ago, even reaching out to Mercy Medical, who leased that at one point, to see if they want to have a second location and come back over to this.
We're close, and I did find out today from inquiring that just that building over there, that 2-story building, the utilities monthly are about $1,200 a month when it was occupied with a business there. And that was both floors, FPL and the city water. And so it's something that needs to be considered. I'd love to hear from Mr. Bullard.
Does anybody ask the county if they'd take the building? We've inquired about that. They may not want the building.
Maybe Mr. Williams can answer that.
No, I think they would accept title to it. I just don't know that that's what you would want to do at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Not at this particular point. I'm not ready for that.
Why not?
I think we've already had
If-
public comments.
If it is legal for us to rent it, I think that's the first question, to a non-medical, whatever. I would want to see half of the money going into the patient care fund from the rent.
My only concern on that, on the rent, which would figure out to be $6,000 a month, would not even be sufficient to cover the expenses of the building practically. Because if we looked at leasing the building with the county paying for the elevator, which is $65,000, so the first year they would be there free. And then the air conditioner needs repair.
No. They said they would do the repairs.
But they want
Am I
to
correct?
compensate, they wanted to be compensated.
Well, you're both correct, but they would do the repairs,
Yeah.
but they want a credit against the rent for the cost of doing the repairs.
Meaning at 65,000, they'd be rent free for the first year.
Doesn't mean it all has to come in 1 year. We have to do something to increase our patient care fund. Our patients are being turned away from the places that will accept them once or twice because we don't pay them enough. And this is a conundrum in the whole medical field. If people don't have the right insurance, excuse me, the doctor won't see you. If you don't have the right kind of insurance, you can go in the emergency room, and no matter how bad you are, they're going to turn you away. Go home. I don't know how many of you see that with people you know. I see it quite a bit. I am well aware from my contacts from working in the hospital, what's happening. I think our obligation is to look into what we can do to increase that. So to give them a credit for half a year or half the amount of money and put some of it in our patient care fund so we can increase what we are paying so that our patients can see more doctors. And maybe we could increase the number of people that we're taking care of then. Why come and apply for medical assistance here when they're not going to be accepted anywhere? So I think we need to address that.
Anybody have a motion, an official motion for this?
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion. I don't know how this affects court administration because you are under somewhat of a timeline. And just for the record, this come up pretty quick. I think when the renewal come up, they started looking for space. This is not something that's been on the docket and discussed by me with them for any extended period of time. But having said that, you do have some medical proposals. We've discussed that, and you're more familiar with one of those than you are the other. One of the things that I was going to ask was for either a special meeting or workshop, whichever we could do the quickest. At that point, you can decide if any of these medical uses, in your opinion, need to trump the request of court administration. You can also ask Todd to research to make sure a lease is something that you can legally do with these buildings. But, my directive from you is to put lease paying people in the buildings. My understanding, and if this has changed, you can direct me differently, is you wish to remain without levying a millage until at some point there is something considerably like an ambulatory emergency center or something of that nature. So Ms. Laurie's correct. To do that, you still have to generate revenue to pay the overhead, to pay for care and et cetera. That's all part of the equation. But we're at that point. We're at the point that you have options. You've just got to decide which options you want.
I think we still have, personally, I think we still should be looking more at medical related uses for the building. At the last meeting, the special meeting, that's why I mentioned vacant land to see if, I mean, I'd be fine with giving, I think we get the land back from the city this week. I think it, never mind, I'm sorry, I can't look at you. I believe we get land back from the city this week. And, I'd be fine with passing that along to the county if they wanted to build something. I know that it may not be able to be built by July, but I just think that we should be looking at medical uses first and exhaust every avenue of that before we.
Well, we did the two RFPs. You chose from those, we vetted those. We now have two medical proposals other than Meridian that we're considering. Personally, I think one of them's more of a gimme, and that's the one that would be going into the PT building, which you're familiar with. The other one you've really not been exposed to in full detail. And, we basically have what sits on the campus in this building to offer.
What's it getting?
I think that based on what I know to date, that's going to happen.
Oh, we said given. That's
Yeah.
what you meant by given. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Can-
wait, go ahead.
Can we have a special meeting in 2 weeks?
That's coming up on the agenda later. We should have probably put it first, but.
Well, we're in the middle of it, so.
Yeah, I didn't know the conversation would go this way, or we would have. Can we get it advertised? I don't think we can.
What do you
I
think?
think you'll be just on the outside of 2 weeks. You gotta remember, we're a special district, and a special district has a little bit different requirement for advertising special meetings than does other public, just general political subdivisions, governmental bodies.
27th is 15 days away.
Yeah.
What day is that on, Dawn?
What, Tuesday?
I am not available that day. I'm gonna be in Live Oak.
28.
And not Bruce will not be able to cover.
I'm not available this
This
28th, nor the first week of March. But Mr. Williams, correct me if I'm wrong, regardless of what we do with whether it be with whoever we put in there, we've got to do something about the elevator, correct?
Well, the only question is if you lease it directly, you're going to have to pay and then,
Right.
okay, and then if a party wishes to do the work themselves and you're willing, they can certainly take a credit against the lease. That's done often,
But there's other repairs.
but there will be repairs to the elevator because we're not in compliance with law. And that's only because the law changed a couple of years ago. And you opted to forego doing any immediate repairs until you had a tenant.
And we thought we had a tenant, but then that fell through.
Yes. Yes, everything was moving toward the impals. And that did not materialize.
I think that if we can get a decision on whether we can lease to them, everything's on hold until then.
What requirements do we have?
And I'll look into that.
Schedule a workshop. Is it the same as a special meeting?
Is workshop and special meeting, same that.
Yep.
Well, I understand your deal on the lease agreement, but again, as I had said earlier, I would like to vet whatever medical options there are available.
I agree.
And we've done this now for 2 years, and if we continue to just kind come up void on those, then I'm ready to declare it surplus property and donate it to the county.
Well,
That's my opinion.
I don't agree with that part of it, but I agree with the fact that I would rather see medical in there.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, because we all have schedules to coordinate. With your permission, we will call or we will set a special meeting just as soon as we can get it coordinated. I will have the parties notified and they will be present at the meeting to discuss their medical proposals with you and what they specifically need. If you do not find those to be to your liking, the court administration, of course, is just going to be a little bit further behind trying to make their deadline. But other than that, I really don't know what to tell you, what to advise you.
If nobody has a motion, then we just move to the next item for the night.
Thank you.
Is that your wishes for us to just try and,
Yeah, I think we should work
Coordinate with
on
you.
coordinating a special meeting.
because I've already heard a couple of comments about your availability, who's gonna be available when.
That's coming up later on the agenda, correct?
Yes,
Special, thank you.
okay.
The building administration fund,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the budget amendment that was discussed also at the special meeting. And the only thing I would point out here is we are covering just one additional month's of expense. The second thing is we did not take this from the reserves. We took this from what line items of other funds that we believe we would have overages in. We're trying our best not to actually touch anything that's in the reserve. Having said that, it's pretty straightforward. It just provides us enough operating expense to make it through the next month. And we would ask your approval, and this is Budget Amendment 2024-1.
that's in the amount of,
$50,385.
Just have one question, Mr. Williams, is we're gonna have to do this monthly.
Yes,
We can't do it quarterly.
I could do you a quarterly one, but I did not think that was what you directed me to do. I thought you wanted to have oversight every month in order to make sure that we discussed it.
And back in September, I did, or I think
Okay.
we did, but now it looks like we're gonna have to drag this out more, so quarterly would be beneficial to staff, I'm sure, right?
Much easier for staff.
I think we should at least
Do a month now and then put it on
Yeah,
next.
will.
I'll
Make
make
a special meeting with the next agenda and then do it quarterly that way. That's probably your cleanest way.
I make a motion that we approve budget amendment 2024-1 under the budget administration fund, increasing the budget administration fund $50,385 for the month of whatever coming up, February, March.
Mr. Chair, am I missing something? We don't get a chance to speak on none of this.
Yeah, but we got a motion, so
Okay.
as soon as I get a second, then we'll have.
Well,
I'll
I'd rather,
second the
before I make a
motion.
motion, I'd rather listen to the public comments, because it may change my mind on the way I want to form my motion, please.
So you withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Ms. Lemley's not here, Mr. Ward.
And I'm just curious, I mean, I understand conforming with Robert rules and conforming those how the meetings. At the outset of the first item, you asked public comment before we went into a motion, and then I didn't know why we're doing different, so that's what I interjected. So, again, with this budget, I share the same sentiment as trustee Don Kennedy. Yeah, sure, we're blowing through money recklessly. Why? Because every time we look at one of these agenda packets, guess what the public don't see? We don't never see nothing on the medical. But we don't You mean to tell me that court administration can make its way on the agenda and almost be ready to have a vote and make a decision, but none of the medical people have made it to this point? And you're saying, why have we not gotten there in 26 months? It's because no one has put it on the agenda for 26 months. No one has put it on the agenda for 26 months. It has been people after people who have come here and it has never been voted up or down as to whether or not these medical proposals would be entertained or not. I done heard, and once you kick the can down the road on them, next thing you know, we went off entertaining the community college. And then we went off entertaining these, we just went way left field, straight away from medical. We ain't had a medical conversation in over a year. And nobody made it to the agenda. How does the courts make it to the agenda for discussion and action and nobody from the medical field had? And there's been plenty of medical proposals. I just want to know what happened? Did the chair lose sight on what we're supposed to do? Did the board lose sight? Is someone playing around somewhere else instead of focusing on what we should be focused on, which is medical? The board has wasted their money. The chair has not given great oversight. Mr. Williams has not brought forth, he's a willing and dealer when he wants to be. He will and deal for the county for almost 30 years. Why is he not willing and dealing for this board? In this underserved population. He got connections, just as well as all of us do. If you know about Mercy Medical, and you ain't been around in the world as long as he's been doing this, how many people he know? We ain't doing it, you're not doing the job right. And I'm just asking, if you're not gonna do the job right, and if you're not gonna take it seriously about what the purpose of this facility and what this board is supposed to be, I ask that you please step aside and let somebody else do it.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. And before we see if Mr. Looker has anything, for the record, want to clarify that we have had plenty of discussions on medical purposes, even for that building, with the EM pals. I know I personally met with somebody that's interested in doing a pharmacy and primary care in the physical therapy building in the last few months. So there, just want anybody else that's listening to realize that we have had discussions on medical uses on the Lakeshore Hospital Authority campus.
That's not what I said. You misrepresented me, Chair. I said they have not made it to the agenda for
Mr.
discussion
Looker,
and action.
Mr. Looker, did you have any comments?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Board.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve budget amendment 2024-1 under the budget building administration fund in the amount of $50,385 effective immediately.
I'll second it.
A motion is second, further discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Before we leave that item, I would like to see if we can instruct staff to go ahead and do it for a quarterly basis.
That's what I was gonna say, and I think at least the next one should be quarterly, because even if we move forward with Meridian, that
Right.
would be a 60-day at least for closing. So I think quarterly would be appropriate. We can
Yep.
always adjust it when we start nearing the end of that budget amendments. That work?
Works for me.
The next item is, public hearing on the discussion and action to declare the parcels of land. Parcel 11793 and parcel 11794 known as the former Lakeshore Hospital as surplus property. This isn't the public hearing, this is going back to that, is that correct?
It is a request to hold a public hearing. You've declared other parcels adjacent to this as surplus property. I failed to get these two very small parcels included in that series of, public hearings. So we have those two small lots, which I identified in your agenda packet. And I am asking that you declare those as surplus. We've already declared adjoining property as surplus.
You need a motion to put that on the next agenda.
We can do it either way. I can put it on the next agenda, but because you're declaring it surplus, you must have a public hearing to do it.
So at this time, you'd open up the public hearing for any comment on that particular issue.
Okay, I was just confused because it's under unfinished business, but with this,
Well, we placed it there because it was intended to have been included with the previous.
so this is the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, tonight is public hearing. Okay. I'll declare the public hearing open.
What?
Sir Lilker, would you like to comment on this? Ms. Lindley?
They need to be surplus. They never needed to be bought.
Mr. Warren?
Mr. Williams, if I understand you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, because one thing I don't want to do is misquote anybody. Right, so I may not say it verbatim, so bear with me. You said that you mistakenly forgot to include these two parcels that we're deeming, or that the board will make a decision on surplus. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Alright, so I move to say that not only have you made a mistake in not adding these pieces, but there's been mistakes made for months and months and months and months about, and to correct you too, Mr. Chair, as you speak into the microphone, as you're trying to redirect something, a statement that I made to your audience. Be clear that I made a true statement that there has never been a discussion action item on the table as it relates to medical facilities, is what I said.
That's not true.
That is true. What
And
name?
just a point of order, the discussion needs to be limited to those two lots.
I thought the chair gave the point order. And Robert's rule, the chair, I mean, I know the attorney gave the point order. I mean, when you,
I'm pointing that out, that the agenda item to be spoken on is the two lots.
okay, but you ain't the chair. Now you wanna be, you done lost your job over at the city. I mean, come on, man, I'm trying to get, you know.
Mr. Warren, that's
It's- I
inappropriate.
mean,
That's
it's-
not the time for that. So
I'm not trying to be inappropriate, but he's not the chair.
your time is ticking away. So if you have anything to discuss on the public hearing, now is the time to do so.
But can you correct him that this is the chair? Is it not the chair job to point of order me?
Okay, we're here in public comments. So
I'm gonna
not-
ask you a question, 'cause I wanna know what the
It's
rules
not a
are.
question and answer. This is public comment. So I'm allowing you to have your time. But I'm not doing the back and forth with,
Nobody's trying to do back and forth with you.
I'm just letting you know, I'm not taking up your time.
Okay, I mean, it's my time, so I can use it however I want. I can sit here, I can it's public comment.
You can. If
Right.
you want me to answer and take that out of your time, then I will answer that.
No, I just want you to be a chair.
Okay.
Yeah, and do the right thing by what you were put and appointed by the governor to do. And that's to make sure that medical facilities go here and that the people who are running it, make sure they bring it forth to you and be honest and transparent with the people. That's all I'm saying. And keep people as a chair in their right rolling position. Just like you would if you own a business. You wouldn't have employees talking to customers any type of way. If that was not their job, they ain't management.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Looker, did you want to speak? I saw that you left a comment.
Yeah, I did.
Mute my audio.
There you go. I can hear you. No,
Now you can hear me?
now I can hear you.
Thank you. I don't know. We seem to be, this is all crossed sideways. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry for this confusion. I was told there's 3 dots at the bottom of Zoom. I never had this problem before, but there's no 3 dots here. So what I've been doing is getting a hold of Carl and Barbara and telling them I want to speak, and then we'll try to figure this out. In any event, this is very confusing. Just a minute ago, Manager Williams said that, I don't even know what he said anymore. I did not understand that there was going to be a public hearing tonight, discussion and action to declare this is a public hearing on just those 2 parcels, period, full stop. Is that correct?
Yes.
And just give somebody, just as a point of information, tell me where those 2 parcels are. Are those the parcels that Jack bought at the auction?
It's behind the parking lot, right? Or yes,
Yeah, they're like out in the woods. Those were bought for like $2,000 each or something at a courthouse auction. Is that correct?
Yes.
yes.
Thank you. Then while I generally have no opinion on this, those parcels don't do anybody any good, and I'm in support of those things being ruled as surplus property. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Okay, we will close the public hearing. Wishes of the board.
Well, it's
Motion.
just a
I'm
public
sorry.
hearing tonight. It'd be put back on the agenda to take final action.
It's whatever the legal requirement is.
Yeah, I think you're better off doing it that way, that you've had the input tonight from the public hearing. That way there's plenty of notice.
And then have it on the agenda.
Yes, that way.
You need a motion, to have it put on the agenda.
I would just close the public hearing and allow for the comment.
All right. Move to the next item of discussion, the progress report from staff regarding the ongoing efforts with Meridian.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Kennon regarding that one.
Yeah, we, as you're aware, you instructed me to contact Mr. Moses for an appraisal made in the name of the authority, and that has been done. I checked with Chase this morning. It should be done this week. Once I receive it, I'll get with Mr. Williams and we'll figure out how to get it out.
Maybe we could have that on if we have a special meeting, we could have that on that agenda as well.
Yes.
Okay. Slim.
Board, did Mr. Kennedy go to the Masons? And if so, what kind of overall reaction when you told them that we can only sell it at fair market value?
Understanding was he was gonna go once we get the appraisal back.
Oh, he didn't go to get any initial reaction.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a general question?
Sure.
Does anybody know when Columbia County or Lake City changed the plot maps from letters to numbers? How far back that goes?
I don't know.
I would love an answer to that, and that might help your Masons.
So you want to know the year they changed from block numbers to block letters?
Block letters to block numbers. And if so, if they could tell us where L plot is,
L
L, like in
plot
Lauren,
or block?
plot, or because it's on a plot map. But it's not dated.
Just trying to get you an answer on that.
Okay.
Questions or comments on this item?
How the fuck do you talk, man? How do you get unmuted here? Hello? I never had a problem like this before. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, we heard every word of that.
Very good. I apologize if I promised myself I wasn't using the F-bomb anymore. After the first of the year, I might have slipped up, and I certainly apologize if it came through, although it probably was not my voice. Regarding these, my discussion and act on Meridian, this thing is anybody and I guess this is a statement and a question, that is the responsibility of this board, if they're transferring this hospital to Meridian and still considering that, to, number one, find out the quality of care that Meridian offers, that there is, and I will tell you as a point of information, that there is a petition going around where people are speaking up against giving Meridian the hospital. That this board has not investigated the finances of Meridian, the high price salaries. At least one person is over $600,000 a year and has been paid a bonus. I'm not exactly sure what the bonus was for, because Meridian basically floats on a sea of public funds, Medicaid and other funds that come from governmental agencies. So I guess this board, who's appointed by the governor, I'm not exactly sure who you represent at this stage, needs to do some investigation before this hospital is given to Meridian. It says discussion and action. I guess the action is you're going to keep discussing. So that's another thing on the agenda that's not clear, along with some of the other things. And I'm respectfully requesting that this board somehow figure out, it's something that the only person that has addressed is Trustee Chancey about the quality of care at Meridian, that Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Beal, and Mr. Douglas, and the new trustee, Mr. Bullard, have not asked one question to Meridian. Number one, about the salaries. Number two, about the quality of care. Number three is why they can't get their people that they treat to even anybody of the thousands to make any kind of recommendation. So I'm requesting in the ongoing discussions about this transfer that this board, either at the next workshop or tonight, discuss whether or not you're just not going to ask any questions and just go on your merry way, or if you're going to truly investigate what's going on at Meridian. And that's my comment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Looker?
Do I get skipped?
No, we weren't taking any action, so I wasn't expecting public comment, but you're recognized. We can speak.
Thank you. I want to break Robert's rule. I have a quick question. I kind of cringe when I agree with Stu, but I did bring that up at the last special meeting about a lot of allegations that are coming out, and was wondering whether or not this board was gonna take and look into whether or not some type of fact-finding mission to see whether or not you bring in a nightmare of treatment toward people with mental illness, because it runs deep in my family, and my mom is often a part of that system. And if it's gonna be right here and it's gonna be in the community, she's gonna be mistreated, like, I'm gonna go ape shit. Like, just being honest, like, I'm not gonna have my mom mistreated. I don't think nobody would. Right? So if that is the smoke, and when there's smoke, there's fire. If there's smoke, we need to check and see where the fire's coming from and try to put it out. Meaning, not saying it's true, not saying it's false, but to find out what. And also, I like the fact that Mr. Stu can get off track on subject matter. The attorney don't want to order him, and nor do you say anything. And I find that to be extremely biased. Extremely, because what he was talking about was not definitely on the subject matter. But I guess I'm treated differently at board meetings than other people. But we have the same First Amendment rights. He does it when he wants to do it and talk off subject matter. Nothing said, it's fine. I do it, it's a problem. Why is that? Something like if Trump do it, it's okay. If I do it, it's a problem. Why is it that one person can do something and he get point of order and the chair doesn't entertain? I mean, it's just sat right here. It just happened. Like, we just all witnessed it. Some social media, like, I'm gonna clip it and run it back tonight and put it on my social media page and show that there's a bias when it comes to me, no matter where I go at the podium, when I'm only exercising. Am I free or not? Am I still enslaved? Do I have First Amendment rights? And if I do, why do they get infringed on? That's what I want to know. I mean, what is up with this Constitution? Does it not fit me? It doesn't matter if you don't like my position. I have a right to speak it. Doesn't matter because you don't agree with me. I have a right to speak it. And people who do this more than anybody are not liberals, it's rhinos. People who act like they're Republicans, act like they're conservative, and then when the First Amendment is for them, they're for it, and when it's against them, they're not for it. It's crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. And the new business, discussion and action, a request from Meridian Behavioral regarding the use of Suite 101.
Yes, thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman. I included in your agenda
Excuse me.
packet.
Hold on.
May I make one comment first?
Yes, ma'am.
What I personally agree with what Stu was saying, with the exception, the salaries are like that in many places in the medical field. Okay, when he was talking about 600,000, that occurs in many, many areas of the medical field. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chancellor.
Okay.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've received a request from Meridian. Meridian has a Community Act Team, CAT. They do mobile responses when there are crisis situations. They like to be within a 45-minute response of those crises. Up till now, they really have not had a point of operation. They have requested that we consider allowing them to use Suite 101, which is on the west side of this building. Now, I've told you that to remind you of this. Suite 101 has been leased to the county. And speaking with the county, I do think the county would relinquish that lease. Currently in that building is the Toys for Tots campaign. They would have to relocate. However, the problem we are now getting into is, as we've discussed earlier in this meeting, we have certain providers of care which may interfere or may determine where you can allow people to locate. The field's getting a little bit crowded. We've dealt with Meridian and we've dealt with others. As we've talked about, you might be able to help the CAT. However, it may not be in that space, is my point. That space may have to be used for other medical purposes. So I would suggest that you give this strong consideration, because I do think it's important. And if we're successful in doing something with Meridian, it supports their effort. However, until you hear, which is why we are requesting the special meeting from the other medical providers and where you may locate them, assuming you like what they propose, you can then make that decision. I would hate to see us lease a piece of a building only to need that space back, is my point.
Mr. Chair, I assume because it's a new item agenda under new business, are we going to take public comment on this?
We are.
Thank you.
Mr. Lilker?
I don't.
No?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Regarding this action, I thank you for the invitation to speak. This item calls for discussion and action. There is no proposition before the board. And while I certainly thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I certainly have opinions on this, knowing the past rents and what went on years ago in that part of the building, the board needs to follow the rules as set up by the Florida legislature. I understand Mr. Kennedy's heart may be in the right place, if there's nothing on the floor to discuss. Until the board makes a proposition, that is the law. That was SB 50 in 2013. I think Mr. Cannon may want to give you some rules. And I think, Mr. Beal, that's what's getting this board in trouble with these comments that go on forever. There's nothing in front of the board until you make a motion to lease it. If you do make a motion to lease it, then I would be more than happy to comment, and I have my own thoughts on that. But right now, there's nothing to comment on. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And he should be given the right to speak if there's a motion made.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may interject what I did several months ago as to the Lakeshore Hospital Authority meeting rules and procedures. Under public comment time, order of speakers, the time for public comment during the meeting will be placed on the board's agenda. The forms submitted by the speakers, The board chair, at their sole discretion, may allow individuals to address each item scheduled on the agenda prior to the trustees discussing and taking action on the item. If the board chair intends to allow public comment prior to each item scheduled on the agenda, the board chair will announce the change in public comment time prior to the start of the meeting. I have said it before, I like listening to the public comments before this board amongst ourselves discuss that item and form a motion, because some of these public comments may help me mentally formulate my thoughts. Mr. Kennon, I am corrected.
Yeah, well, I understand, but.
And if that's the case, we need to amend.
Well, the public
our
has the
rules.
right to speak after the proposition, and that is defined as essentially a motion. So you can, if they want to speak before the motion.
The
that's
chair
fine if
can
they want-
intend that.
If they want to, right, the
State
chair has
that.
the discretion.
Yep.
If they want to speak after the motion, then the chair would have the discretion to allow that too.
But our rules say it's before the motion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are our rules in violation
Well,
of the law or?
They can be construed as being contrary to Robert Rules of Order as to the definition of a proposition, which is a motion before the
But
board.
wouldn't our rules overrule Robert's rules of order?
That would be just that, I don't know the answer to that, just to be perfectly
It's always
honest.
been my understanding. If we have rules, we follow Robert's rules, but our rules.
And I have
Proceed.
heard many times from public comments to follow the rules, and this is one of the rules that I insist we follow. If it's not, it needs to be changed.
I'll double check that, so we'll have a clear procedure for the next meeting.
But as of now, I would like to stick to our rules, and if
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
wrong, then we can change it at the next meeting. Let me finish up public comments, and we'll get on to this.
I understand the public comments. I would like to interject something.
Can we finish the public comments or?
You might have to do them all over again. That's why I want to interject something. We have, Meridian's going to get up and speak. Is that correct? Their representative or not? If she's not going to speak, then go ahead.
I don't know that she intends to speak or not.
I'm available certainly too. I can tell you more about it. I can answer questions. I can do either of those things.
Yeah.
That's your preference.
Do you see where I'm coming from? She gets up and talks. Everybody's going to want to speak again.
But we've had public comment at that point.
Her comments, in my opinion, would be part of the agenda item, and our rules say that before the agenda item, we can take public comments on the way it's advertised on the agenda, which states discussion and action, request from Meridian Behavioral Healthcare regarding use of Suite 101. I'd like to hear the public comments, then we as a board can discuss that particular item agenda, and if that means questioning the person that is here, we can do that likewise. That's my opinion. Mr. Chairman, you can correct me because I have been wrong many times.
The only reason I brought it up is because public comments have been taken after discussion tonight. So
No, it has not.
Ms. Lindley?
My question is, Dale Williams has indicated potential other medical people. Can he elaborate, or can you elaborate on who wants to possibly be in that building?
We can do that later, but right now it's just comments, not.
Well, it's in reference to the new business, in reference to entities. Okay,
Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Mr. Kennedy. This is how meetings are supposed to be. Robert's rules is a guideline, for certain things. It definitely doesn't override, what a governing body lays out as, their rules. We're facing the same thing goes with this. And what I do appreciate about Mr. Kennedy is that he wants to hear from the public before you make a vote. Because what if I have something to say, if there is a motion made, then that means that I wasted my time. You wasted my time. I wasted my gas to come here and try my best from the podium to make my requests and thoughts known to the board, like he said, that may formulate or change what his thinking may be based on what the public is saying. That is the right way to do it. Now, thank you. Don don't always get it wrong. He don't always get it right either. That's another matter that we can discuss. But as it relates to the new business item, what are we doing? I just want to know, just a straight yes or no, right? I don't want to get into no assumptions, no hypotheticals, and maybe you don't want to answer, Chair, and maybe nobody on the board has an answer, and that's fair to me. But I want to know, are we turning this into a Meridian campus? I mean, Meridian going here, Meridian going here, Meridian going here. I mean, where else ain't they gonna go on this campus? I mean, why I say that is because this is a slippery slope. You're opening up a Meridian door that seems like it's not gonna stop opening. So I don't understand. Like, look, we ain't even dealt with Meridian on the first thing yet. Now we're over here talking about letting them get this, and then next thing you let them get this, and I'm like, what are we doing? This is dysfunctional. Like the governor appointed y'all to like do this different than what y'all are doing this. Y'all just can't just let people just willy-nilly and over here, and y'all ain't addressing other people. I mean, what, Meridian got like first right of refusal, or they got special preference? Did the governor call y'all himself and told y'all to put them on front? Are they A-list celebrities or something? When it comes to the needs of this community? You know, it's okay. We're just having a conversation. I'm passionate, not aggressive. I'm passionate about the issues. If more people be passionate about the issues, we'll get a lot more done. Just passionate. I see how you look, and I see how people are thinking. Think, oh, I'm gonna come over across the counter, and I'm not gonna do any of that. I kind of portfolio out of this world. I wouldn't fuck it up for nobody, mess it up for nobody. Excuse me. I said I was gonna do better with the coin, but I wouldn't mess that up for nobody. I'm a businessman. But right now, I'm advocating. And I'm advocating for people since they were born in this country who look like me, has never had representation to talk to y'all about these issues and are afraid in most cases.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Board, what's your name?
Excuse me, Ms. Chauncey, go ahead.
I still want to know what they're talking about doing with it from them.
Good evening. Hi, thank you for allowing me to comment and give you a little bit more information. We currently on our campus, if you're familiar, on Michigan, we are full to the brim on that campus. We continue to open new programs and try to provide additional services to the community, but our campus at this time has every available space occupied, often with shared workstations, double, folks sharing, signing out their time in an office. We have many community-based services, ACT teams that provide services in clients' homes, primarily in homes, in schools, in jails, in various community-based settings. But those staff do need an office to come back to, have meetings, do their notes and their documentation, make their phone calls, and a sort of base out of that. That's what we were hoping to do out of this space next door. In the event we're able to come to an agreement for the hospital space, those staff would be based out of that building. So at this time, we're just at a point where we have no nooks and crannies to put any additional staff in.
This space is out there wasteland.
Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Ms. Chauncey, I have some questions, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bullard, do you like to go first?
No, go ahead.
I have read the memo that was provided by Ms. Craig. And I probably read too much in the memos, but it states that in there that they wanted to, that Meridian is interested in utilizing Suite 101 for our community-based programs, meaning plural. And then in reading this, we talk about one which says we have our Community Act team, or known as the CAT team. Can you tell me what the CAT team actually is comprised of and what their mission is?
Sure, certainly. So the CAT team is a wraparound team that provides multidisciplinary care to kids and families. So it's dedicated to serving children. And there's a therapist, a mentor, peer, a care coordinator that works with the team and the family, a nurse, to provide those home-based services. So they provide the services in the school and in the home. But as I mentioned, they need an office to have team meetings, to make phone calls, to complete documentation and do those things. So that is one of our ACT teams. So we have a few different, I think she was probably referencing, we have multiple
Well,
types of.
she mentioned another one. I didn't
Oh,
mean to
yeah,
interrupt
certainly.
you.
No.
Another one that's called our Mobile Response Team is a team that needs to be able to respond to emergency calls within 45 minutes. Right now, they are working out of company cars. What is the Mobile Response Team?
The mobile response team receives crisis calls and responds in the community, again, to schools and homes, to assess individuals that are experiencing a crisis and get them connected with the appropriate level of care. That's typically what they do.
Mr. Kennedy, real quick, before you continue on with your questions, we've got to switch the tape over real quick. So
Oh, okay.
we'll take a 2-minute recess.
Ms. Johnson, correct me if I'm wrong on recess. Isn't that property for
Call the meeting back to order. Mr. Kennedy, I
Thank you,
apologize.
Mr. Chair. Again, just a couple more quick questions. So we're looking at the CAT team, the Community Act team, and also the Mobile Response Team. And from what I hear is that these teams respond in the community, meaning here in Columbia County and Lake City, and also predominantly in the schools, I think you had mentioned,
in the.
in the
schools and-
families or in the home and in the schools.
Mhm.
So are y'all on some sort of contract with the county schools to do this, or is it they call you, or help me understand that?
Yes, I mean, varies by team. So the mobile response, the schools do call us to come out and respond. For the CAT team, it's families that are interested in receiving the services. The school does allow us to come on site and meet with children. We do have an agreement there, but we also provide therapy and care coordination and mentorship with the families in their home.
Okay, so it's basically an on-call
The mobile
teams, both,
responses,
yeah, and
the
the,
CAT team is not on call. We enroll families in it
oh, you
and
enroll,
set up
okay.
appointments standing in-home services.
All right, so I'm about to be done, Mr. Chair. So approximately how many employees during the average 8-hour day would there be in that Suite 101?
We would imagine being able to accommodate 15 employees. I think now that doesn't mean they'll all be there at the same time,
Right,
because they're out and about.
15 employees.
That was.
And these employees are currently housed where, other than their vehicles?
Well, in their vehicles and on our campus currently, we have shared workstations.
And that campus would be on
Michigan.
Michigan?
Mhm.
Okay, so, and that particular area has been outgrown. And then my last question, Mr. Chair, would be, approximately how many clients, patients would actually be coming to this facility here?
Very, very few.
But some,
I mean, it's a possibility.
but
Certainly.
some,
Not for mobile response, they only do community-based services, but for the CAT team, if there was a family who requested an office visit, that could be a potential. But the services are designed to be provided in the community.
and that facility that I assume you've looked at here at Suite 101
Mhm.
would accommodate your up to 15 employees?
Yeah.
Okay, no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for those questions, and I've got one more to add. The last sentence of Ms. Craig's response said that it would significantly helps Meridian serve the clients that are in need during a crisis. We will have space to store items to be able to give the homeless and or families in need. Is that because whenever they go out and they respond to something, they would have items, they would take those items with them, or would that be
Well,
families?
I think just to clarify, Amanda Craig is our vice president of facilities. Shouldn't oversee any clinical programming. So I think there's been a little bit of discussion of what we could use the space for and what we potentially need that space for. I mean, certainly there's some supplies and materials that they utilize on a regular basis. But the primary purpose would be for staff workstations and the ability for them to have an office to work out of.
I guess my concern is with it saying that, I mean, are we gonna start seeing the homeless population camping
No.
out, waiting for them to open to get?
No, not at all. So I think there might be some confusion, and forgive me, I don't have that, but there might be some confusion as to what the intent was. But there will be no lines or clients coming here other than, as I mentioned, if there's an ACT team family that requests an office visit, we would do our best to accommodate that. But it's not going to be an outpatient center where we're seeing regular clients show up. We've got a center for that, where we've got customer support to check people in and assist them. This really is our request because of the folks who are out and about in the field, not having a real base to come and work out of.
Who pays for these services?
Those services are funded by Lutheran Services Florida, LSF, who is the managing entity for the state dollars.
I don't have any further questions.
Yeah, but I understand that your recommendation was kind of wait and see till after we
Yeah.
find out what the needs are for
Yeah, I don't want to be an inconvenience to anyone. I would hate for y'all to say that Meridian could use 101 only to learn at your special meeting, you're gonna need the space to put a different use in, which is more towards your missions and goals. And given that the use of the space is temporary, you will, assuming that you work out some arrangement with Meridian Corporate, they're going in that building and
Yes.
at the end of the day. So, you know, once you hear your medical proposals and the other programs, we may very well be able to accommodate it. However, I don't know that at this point, and we won't know it until you sort of look at the overall campus plan. You know, and it changes. I mean, when we started with Meridian, they were talking about 3 buildings, and then it went from 3 to 2, and then down to the hospital. So those things do change, but unless it's just absolutely critical, I suggest you wait where somebody don't move in and then have to turn around and move right out.
Mr. Williams sums it up perfect. I was just gonna say, let's don't get the cart ahead of the horse on this. And I do know that, through the discussions and talks that we've had with Meridian over the last 12 months plus. And, from my input from the community, the downtown community, the members surrounding the community here in District 10 and elsewhere, that we have assured, and Meridian has assured us, that they were not going to turn this campus here into another Michigan Street campus for outpatient treatment, that it was going to be strictly used as a psychiatric inpatient facility hospital. And if we look at this down the road, I want to make sure that Mr. Kennan is aware of that through his negotiations with Meridian, as far as being sure of that, because I've given my word to many people in the community that this was not going to be another outpatient clinic down here. That's my only thoughts on it right now. I'm not saying this will be.
I don't mean to say you're wrong, but in 50 years working for hospitals, they're always outpatients. Always,
Have you ever worked at a psychiatric?
for 6 months.
Okay.
But the only psychiatric hospitals, when I worked in that area, were always offset from where the population was at that time. Because they never knew who was coming in and out. And it isn't only the patients to worry about, it's their visitors.
No motion, in the roll. Board member comments, Ms. Chancellor?
You got, your renewal of the elevator.
Oh,
and
sorry.
Special meeting.
Renewal of the elevator.
Yes, sir. Our annual elevator maintenance contract has expired. For the previous year, we spent $3,008.19. The renewal rate is $3,278.89. That is an 8.9% increase. By policy, I can only authorize up to 5% annual increases. Therefore, this exceeds that. However, in speaking particularly with the county, this tends to be very modest in terms of increases for elevators. So I would ask your approval.
So move.
Well, I just have one question. Mr. Williams, is this for all elevators?
No, sir, this is just this building.
Just the admin building, that's what I thought. It reads right here.
Just
So
this
it's
building.
Over $3,000 for the admin. Bill?
We've held the others in abeyance depending on what may happen in terms of leases. We're not trying to renew certain things.
Let's try to get public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Warren,
I don't comment on everything.
Mr. Looker.
Now you want me to make my motion?
Yes,
I so move that we pay it.
Second.
got a motion and a second, further discussion. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carried. And the workshop special meeting, so
Here we go, Mr. Chairman. I am requesting, and we might as well make it a special meeting. The advertising requirements are the same. Therefore, you can take final actions. The intent would be to bring in the remainder of the medical proposals that have been considered. We can vet those, you can finish vetting those, and we can determine best locations for those, assuming that you wish to proceed with them. Once we do that, we're then able to dispose of one way or the other the request from court administration. We're also able to dispose of the request from Meridian for use of Suite 101. But I think it's just wise that we make sure that we're not leasing space away that you may need for these other uses. And it would just seem to be the most logical way to approach it.
Can we also put on the agenda the other two items, Mr. Williams, as far as the
appraisal.
yes, the appraisal from Mr. Kennan, and then also the public hearing that we had regarding lots 11,793 and 11,794.
So noted? Yes.
What are the advertising requirements for?
Well, I think we've always, in an abundance of caution, went overboard. When we advertised a special meeting, we specifically stated in that notice that like there would be public hearing for this purpose. And in a special meeting, you have to kind of go ahead and print your agenda in advance. And then you're limited to just that which is on the agenda.
It's 7 days. Is there no way to get the Lake City Reporter to print that on like this coming up weekends?
I can do what I can do to try and speed it up, and I promise I'll do that. But first thing we got to do is to determine an available date where we have you present. And sometimes that becomes the more difficult thing to do in setting these.
And Brandon, we do it classified and regular, both, in both ways of the paper, and one so many days out and the other so many days out.
And that's required by law?
It's it's the way that we have always been directed to advertise in the past.
My concern is with the paper being published only 3 days a week.
I understand.
I mean, we can't hold up.
It does affect our ability to call special meetings because the ads have to hit the dates that the papers actually publish. We've been fortunate with that though, and we have gotten cooperation from the Lake City Reporter in the past. And I think they will do anything they can to accommodate. But we got to get the date first.
Can you also look in to see, I mean, does it have to be in the classifieds or does it just have to be in the legal? I'm not saying we shouldn't publish it as much as possible, but I mean, if it's not required to have it in the classifieds.
Can we take a poll on what dates people are unavailable?
If
Yep.
you wish.
I'm unavailable from the 28th of February until our next meeting on March 11th. I'm hopefully going to be in South Florida taking my frustrations out on the wild turkey. And that's not the bottle, that's the bird.
So
Gee, I could accommodate you in my yard. We've got 3
I
blocks
wasn't
up.
invited.
I didn't know you'd like to hunt turkey.
Would you be available up to the 28th if we did the 27th, for example?
I could do
Talked about
27.
27th.
I'm out that day.
Okay, so now we're to the 26th at the very latest.
You don't, somebody from your firm can't attend the 27th?
Are they 26?
I could get somebody, but they're not gonna be much help. As far as any questions that get thrown at them.
They're all-
I mean, Bruce would be. Probably the one, and he's not gonna be able to.
I
do
got you.
anything till
How about the
probably
26th?
March. 26 is a,
Monday, 2 weeks from today.
City workshop.
I think Clay's covering that one. Yeah, I could do the 26th.
You good with the 26th, Miss Lauren? You, Mr. Paul?
I'm good with any time.
Dale?
Sure.
Well, I'll have to find out from Stephen.
So we'll have to try and make that work from an advertising standpoint.
That's great. 26, that's great.
Okay. I thought that was a circuit, yes.
Would it be at the regular time, 5:15?
Hmm?
Yes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Chancey, board member comments? Mr. Kennedy?
None.
Board?
None.
Anybody? Okay, we've exhausted the agenda and we'll adjourn.